After Wang Lin's soul devourer soul killed the 6 Tang family core members, it quickly returned to his body. Wang Lin opened his eyes and pondered for a while. When he was killing that middle-aged man, he saw a figure that shook his heart. If his eyes hadn't fooled him, then that person was Wang Zhua. The woman beside him was the daughter of the middle-aged man. There was clearly some relationship between them. Wang Lin's eyes lit up as he put away the restriction flag, bronze mirror, and the devils. Then, he jumped onto the mosquito beast and quickly found the woman that was with Wang Zhua through his divine sense. The direction the woman was walking in wasn't toward Tang Family City, but the country's border. Wang Lin pondered for a while, then chased after her. Tang Xiao was filled with sadness. Although she was running away, she couldn't stop the tears from coming out. She didn't know what became of her father, but she had a feeling that was weighing down her heart so heavily that she could barely breathe. The complex feelings in Wang Zhua's heart became even stronger. Although he felt very good when the Tang family members were killed, he was now feeling a deep sense of concern. Wang Zhua's body shook. He stopped moving and closed his eyes as he recalled his family being killed by the Tang family. Tang Xiao saw that Wang Zhua stopped, so she quickly stopped moving as well. She looked at him while biting her lower lip. Right now this man, her husband, was the only one she could rely on. After a while, Wang Zhua opened his eyes and viciously slapped himself a few times. He wanted to slap himself away. He wanted to remind himself that the Tang family was his enemy, and that he didn't have any feelings for Tang Xiao. As long as they were from the Tang family, they should die. Tang Xiao quickly moved forward to stop Wang Zhua. Her tears flowed endlessly. Wang Zhua steeled his heart. He waved his arm and threw Tang Xiao to the side. He said, "Leave. From now on, you and I have nothing to do with each other." Tang Xiao looked at Wang Zhua with despair in her eyes. She didn't even realize that she was biting her lips so hard that she was bleeding. She was overflowing with tears as she tried to grab Wang Zhua. But Wang Zhua dodged again and coldly said, "You won't leave? Then I'll go." With that, he started to fly toward the opposite direction. Tang Xiao stared dumbfoundedly at Wang Zhua's back. The despair in her eyes grew even stronger. Her heart felt as if it was being cut by a knife. Her face became red in a sickly way and she coughed out a mouthful of blood. Her face became pale as she tried to steady herself. The truth was, the moment Wang Zhua turned around, he could feel his heart tear open. But thinking about the deaths of all of his family members, he forced himself to steel his heart. At this moment, the pain Wang Zhua was feeling wasn't any less painful than Tang Xiao's. Tang Xiao let out a pitiful smile as she softly called to Wang Zhua, "Don't go." Wang Zhua's body shook. He clenched his fist as he suddenly turned to Tang Xiao and shouted, "Scram!" With that, he quickly sped up and in the blink of an eye, disappeared without a trace. Blood leaked from Tang Xiao's mouth again as she looked at the direction Wang Zhua disappeared to. She let out a bitter smile and confusion filled her eyes. Although the world was large, she didn't know where to go. Of the 2 most important men in the world to her, she didn't know if one was dead or alive and the other abandoned her. For a woman, this wasn't any different than the sky collapsing. Wang Zhua flew more than 10 kilometers away. His hands were bleeding from clenching his fists so hard. Visions of the deaths of his family members filled his mind, but the sight of Tang Xiao's sadness and despair slowly replaced them. After a long time, Wang Zhua landed on the ground. He kneeled facing the direction of his hometown, viciously kowtowed and said, "Father, mother, your son is unfilial." After he finished speaking, he closed his eyes and 2 streams of tears flowed down his cheeks. Then, he got up and quickly went to chase after Tang Xiao. The moment he turned, he felt like he could see his family members, especially his parents, stare at him with painful gazes. They were all pointing at him and calling him a traitor, calling him the bastard son of the Wang family. Wang Zhua's heart had been torn into 2 as he chased after Tang Xiao. Soon he saw the confused Tang Xiao flying. She seemed to notice and turned around, revealing a gentle smile. But the moment the 2 met, a powerful kill intent rushed toward their direction. They saw a youth with white hair that flowed with the wind riding a giant mosquito beast flying toward them. Behind him were countless bodies of the Tang family. The intense smell of blood followed afterwards. Tang Xiao's face became pale. She subconsciously hid behind Wang Zhua. her body shaking. Wang Zhuo stared at the white-haired youth. His eyes revealed a look of disbelief. You are Wang Lin. Wang Zhuo. Wang Lin jumped off the mosquito beast. He landed before Wang Zhuo and looked at the woman behind him. Wang Zhuo subconsciously hit Teng Xiu and looked at Wang Lin with a complex look. After a long time, he slowly said, I should have already guessed that only you would have the power to get revenge for our family. Wang Lin pondered for a while and softly said, Wang Zhuo, I'm sorry. Wang Zhuo let out a bitter smile and said, If you had said that to me back then, I wouldn't have forgiven you, but right now we only have one enemy, and that is Teng Huayuan. Wang Lin's eyes became cold as he slowly said, Teng Huayuan won't be able to run away. The entire Teng family won't be able to run away. Teng Xiu's body shook. Although she was terrified, she still asked, My father he. Shut up. Wang Zhuo stopped Teng Xiu from speaking. He calmed himself and said to Wang Lin, She is your sister-in-law. Before Wang Zhuo could finish speaking, Wang Lin blandly said, Your father shouldn't have been named Teng. Teng Xiu's body shook. The gaze she directed at Wang Lin contained deep hatred. The moment Wang Zhuo heard those words, he knew that Wang Lin already knew about Teng Xiu's identity. The complex feelings in his heart became even stronger. Wang Lin pondered for a while. He looked at the horizon and asked, Is Wang Hao still at the Xiandao sect? Wang Zhuo shook his head and bitterly said, He didn't manage to form his core. He is already dead. Wang Lin closed his eyes. He let out a sigh and said, You and her should leave Zhao. With that, he didn't even look back and jumped onto the mosquito beast. Wang Zhuo's series of actions had clearly expressed that he didn't want Teng Xiu to die. Wang Zhuo looked at Wang Lin's figure. His feelings became even more complicated. The death of his family and parents flashed before his eyes. All of them stared at him, calling him a traitor of the Wang family. Wang Zhuo let out a bitter smile as he turned around to look at Teng Xiu. His heart sank as he saw a very deep, hidden feeling of hatred in her eyes. Wang Zhuo pondered for a bit. His eyes became soft as he gently said, Xiu, let us go. With that, his right handle gently touched her hair. Teng Xiu was startled and then started to cry again. For all the time they had been together, this was the first time Wang Zhuo called her Xiu. However, her smile at the next moment froze, because Wang Zhuo's hand was on her Tianlin. With a surge of his spiritual energy, he ended his wife's life. Teng Xiu died without any pain. She died in the arms of her lover. Holding the corpse of his wife, Wang Zhuo's eyes were filled with sorrow. He looked at the direction Wang Lin disappeared toward and said, Wang Lin, I won't become a traitor of the Wang family, and I won't allow a shred of the Teng family bloodline to remain. With that, he kneeled toward the direction of his home down and kowtowed a few times. He hit his forehead with his palm, ending all of the life in his body. Blood leaked from his mouth as he fell to the ground looking at his wife. Xiu, don't be scared, I'll accompany you. Wang Lin was standing on the mosquito beast as his body suddenly quivered. He could clearly feel the light representing Wang Zhuo in his divine sense disappear. He pondered for a bit, then his body disappeared from the top of the mosquito beast. When he appeared, he was standing next to Wang Zhuo's body. Wang Lin looked at Wang Zhuo's body with a complex feeling in his heart. He understood that Wang Zhuo was torn between his family and lover, and in the end could only kill his lover with his own hands to end the guilt toward his family. At the same time, after his wife died, he killed himself to fulfill his love for his wife. Wang Lin pondered for a while, then pointed his finger at Wang Zhuo's brow. Gradually, a weak soul fire that could be extinguished at any time appeared in Wang Lin's hand. He let out a sigh and disappeared from the spot. In the northeastern part of the capital city, there was a large house that belonged to the Wang family. A white-haired youth appeared inside the Wang family household. The youth walked through the house as if he was transparent. None of the servants seemed to notice him. After the white-haired youth walked inside the house for a while, he stopped before a building. Inside sat a woman whose stomach had a bulge. She was clearly pregnant. The youth looked for a while, then took out a ball of white light. He let out a sigh as he threw out the white light. The white light entered the woman's stomach. The not completely formed baby that hadn't produced its own soul yet gradually fused with the white light. This person will step into the cultivation world in the future. Maybe we will have another chance to meet in the future, the youth muttered to himself as he left. Hengyu Mountain Range, Xiandao Sect. The back mountain where Wang Lin trained before was dotted with countless man-made caves. At the top of the mountain was the only natural cave on the mountain, and Pan Nanzi was cultivating inside it. His appearance hadn't changed a bit in the past 400 years. Dripping sounds echoed inside the cave as water dripped from the ceiling. For a long time, a strange light shone from Pan Nanzi's face that changed back and forth. Gradually, he opened his eyes. They shined as if they contained stars. Pan Nanzi raised his right hand and formed a seal. His expression remained neutral. Then, he waved his right hand forward and the stone before him suddenly began to shine. Soon 10 points of light appeared on the rock wall. However, the moment the 10 points of light appeared, 6 of them immediately dimmed, then disappeared. Pan Nanzi's face slightly twitched and his expression slightly darkened. The air around him suddenly slowed down and soon, even water stopped dripping from the ceiling. If any spirit-severing cultivators were around, their eyes would light up, because affecting the fluctuations of the surrounding spiritual energy to use certain techniques was something only spirit-severing cultivators could do. Pan Nanzi was at the edge of the spirit-severing stage. To him it was not far away at all. The only thing that separated him from the spirit-severing stage was a paper-thin barrier, and all he needed to do was find the right place to poke through. Pan Nanzi stared at the points of lights on the wall. After a long time he sighed and said, "Donghua, who did you offend to bring such disaster upon yourself? If it wasn't for the fact that Lord Shi specifically wanted to use the Tong family as an experiment, this old man really wouldn't want to deal with any of your Tong family affairs." Pan Nanzi's face became gloomy. Even he didn't know what it was about the Tong family that made Lord Shi pick them. If it wasn't so, then with just the Tong family's resources, there was no way they would suddenly gain 9 nascent soul cultivators and Donghua wouldn't suddenly become almost as strong as Pan Nanzi in merely 400 years. He pondered a little, then stood up, waved his sleeves and disappeared from the spot. When he reappeared, he was already at the peak of the Hengyu Mountain Range. Pan Nanzi got down on one knee, stared at the sky, and formed many different seals with his hand. As the seals formed, more and more clouds appeared and an invisible pressure slowly built up in the sky. Pan Nanzi then waved his hand and said, "I, Pan Nanzi, from a lower cultivation country, would like to borrow a magic treasure." The moment he said those words, 2 beams of light, red and green, shot out from the Hengyu Mountain Range. The lights became more and more intense and all of the spiritual energy in Zhao started to gather at the Hengyu Mountain Range. The 2 lights landed next to Pan Nanzi. They soon dimmed and revealed their true form. Their true form was 2 magic discs. On the magic disc were 4 blades that emitted a cold light. There were even rifts in space around them. It can easily be said that this wasn't a nascent soul-level magic treasure, and was made by someone spirit-severing or higher. Pan Nanzi respectfully kowtowed a few times before finally imprinting them with his divine sense and carefully placing them in his bag of holding. Only then did he finally relax. He started to emit a powerful killing intent and muttered, "Donghua, this is the last time I'll help you. If within 100 years the Tong family still doesn't have a spirit-severing cultivator, don't blame me for being ruthless toward the Tong family." With that, he disappeared without a trace. The moment the spirit energy surged, Wang Li noticed it. Although his expression didn't change, his heart sunk. However, he let out a cold snort and charged toward the direction of the last core Tong family member. At the border of the country of Zhao was a very mysterious space. Every time a mortal brought this place up, it would cause fear. Even cultivators are extremely nervous about this place. It was a huge pit of black mud. This was a pit filled with black mud that emitted a smell that stung the nose. No one aside from a few people knew exactly how deep this mud pit really was. Every 100 years, this mud pit would explode, and every explosion was a shocking sight. Most of the time, this was a prohibited place. No matter whether it was mortals, cultivators, or beasts, when they got within certain range of the mud pit, they would be pulled in by a powerful suction force and be buried alive. After a long time, a black fog quietly appeared and covered the whole area. This was considered the most dangerous place in Zhao in the past 400 years, Black Mud Pit. In the deepest part of this black mud pit was a coffin made of black crystals. This black crystal coffin wasn't covered by black mud. It could be said that there was a thick layer of white bones between the coffin and the black mud. Among these bones were the bones of humans and beasts. These bones belonged to the people that were sucked in over the past 400 years. This place was where the person Teng 8 feared the most cultivated. This was Teng 1's cultivating area. Teng 1 was a legend in the Teng family. This person wasn't a descent of Teng Huan. To be exact, he was a younger brother of Teng Huan. He was the only core Teng family member that no one dared to challenge and the only person that held the name Teng 1 for the past 400 years. When Wang Lin got within 1,000 kilometers of the mud pit, he noticed what was special about this place. After pondering a little, he decided not to let the mosquito beast continue and flew onward by himself. Almost the moment Wang Lin entered the 1,000-kilometer range of the mud pit, a withered hand reached out from the coffin. Slowly, a skeleton-like man sat up. This person's whole body was black and there were no muscles in his body at all. On his head were only a few patches of hair. The whole person looked very terrifying. In his eyes, a ghostly light gradually lit up. He then slowly raised his head. At the moment, Wang Lin was above the black mud pit. His expression was more serious than it had been before and his restriction flag was already out and floating next to him. He looked at the mud pit. Without any hesitation, his eyes glowed red and a series of G-realm red lightning bolts shot into the black mud. Deep inside the mud pit, the ghostly light in the eyes of the man in the coffin shined brightly as he watched the series of red lightning bolts land. The man raised his bony hand and touched one of the red lightning bolts. Suddenly, with a loud bang, the red lightning disappeared without a trace and cracks appeared on the man's finger. The man licked his lips. In the ghostly light in his eyes, a powerful urge to fight appeared. He slowly stood up. At that moment, more red lightning bolts landed, but were blocked by his finger. Eventually, all of the red lightning bolts were blocked, but his entire right arm was filled with cracks. He looked at his arm and shook it. It instantly turned to dust. He didn't seem to care at all. His body emitted a powerful will to fight. He let out a smile as he charged upwards. Wang Lin's face was very ugly. He could clearly feel that just now, the red lightning formed by the G-realm was blocked at the cost of only an arm. Something like this has never happened before. Wang Lin could confirm that this person's cultivation level was not spirit-severing yet, but he could block the attack of the G-realm. The moment the man started to dash upward, Wang Lin surrounded the area with the restriction flag without any hesitation. Then, his hand formed a seal and 90 restrictions turned into the shape of dragons and charged toward the mud pit. The skinny man revealed a dumbfounded expression toward the restrictions. He didn't dodge at all and allowed the restrictions to hit his body. Suddenly, countless cracks appeared all over his body. After the last restriction landed, although his body was covered in cracks, he wasn't even slowed down at all. Wang Lin's expression was gloomy as he quickly backed up. His hand formed a seal and pointed to the sky as 90 more restriction flew out. The skinny man looked at the cracks on his body, then at Wang Lin. He licked his lips as he suddenly disappeared from the spot. Without any hesitation, Wang Lin dodged to the side and with a ripping sound, the edge of Wang Lin's clothes were torn. Right where Wang Lin was before, the skinny man appeared, holding a piece of Wang Lin's clothes. His eyes were filled with fighting spirit. Wang Lin's scalp tingled as he stared at the skinny man. If he was a breath slower, he would have been hit by the skinny man. His eyes darkened as the restrictions descended once more and charged toward the skinny man. The skinny man once again revealed a dumbfounded expression. He didn't dodge. He simply let the restrictions hit him, causing more cracks to appear on his body. Wang Lin's eyes lit up. Before all of the restrictions landed, he spent even more spiritual energy to summon more restrictions to attack. At the same time, his body never stopped as he constantly moved around. While he was controlling the restrictions, countless G-realm red lightning bolts were shot out. That skinny man still didn't move. Only when the G-realm lightning was about to land would he raise his left hand to block. Gradually, more and more cracks appeared on his body, and his left arm started to turn to dust. This was a very strange battle. Wang Lin's battle experience can be said to be very rich, but he has never experienced a battle this strange. Teng 1 didn't dodge or block. He just allowed attacks to hit him. However, not even Wang Lin could last long while using all these powerful attacks, especially the Ji realm, which damaged his own nascent soul every time he used it. Wang Lin's body disappeared and reappeared 100 meters away. He took out a jade bottle and dumped all of its contents into his mouth to recover his spiritual energy. But at the same time, the skinny man raised his head and moved once again. Wang Lin's sense of danger rang in his head as he quickly dodged to the side. Once again, he barely got out of the way as the skinny man reappeared and attacked. His forehead was filled with sweat as he quickly digested the pills he had just consumed to recover the spiritual energy in his body. He slapped his bag of holding and took out the ancient sword sheath. He then took out a flying sword and pushed it into the sword sheath. Suddenly, the sword energy rushed out from the sword sheath, forming a giant sword, which landed on Donghua. The skinny man became dumbfounded again as he allowed the sword energy to crash into his body. His body finally wasn't able to withstand all the damage and began to collapse. But just as his whole body was about to collapse, he suddenly seemed to have realized something. He struggled to make his almost collapsed left hand form a seal and said a word that sounded like bones rubbing together. Condense. Suddenly, the body that was about to collapse shined gold and returned to perfect condition. Wang Lin took a deep breath as he stared at the person, unable to say a word. The skinny man's eyes lit up as he stared at Wang Lin with a powerful urge to battle. His hand formed a fist and turned into a blur as he punched toward Wang Lin. Wang Lin's eyes lit up and he immediately backed up. But he quickly found that all of the surrounding spiritual power seemed to have been sucked away by a mysterious power. It even seemed to create an imprisoning power. Wang Lin soon felt his speed decrease drastically under this power. At that moment, Wang Lin's heart quickly calmed down. He hurriedly took out the bronze mirror and pointed it at Donghua, but the green light released by the bronze mirror had no effect on him. Donghua's fist hit the bronze mirror. The mirror cracked and released flashes of light. Thanks to that light, the imprisonment surrounding him weakened and he quickly moved out of the area. At the same time, his heart ached as he shouted, "Explode!" A large number of cracks suddenly appeared on the ancient bronze mirror, and then it exploded. This explosion created a huge gust of wind that swept across the area. After the gust of wind passed, Donghua coughed out a mouthful of golden blood. The moment the blood came out of his mouth, his body looked a lot weaker. He had a panicked expression on his face as he chased after the blood, trying to swallow it. Wang Lin's eyes lit up. He didn't hesitate in the slightest as he charged forward instead of backing up. There was something strange about that blood. When Donghua saw Wang Lin rushing over, he flew even faster and reached out his hands. Wang Lin's eyes lit up and he reached out as well. Under the force of both sides, the golden blood split into two halves, each half floating toward one of them. After Donghua got hold of the golden blood, he quickly swallowed it. Then he stared at Wang Lin and quickly charged at him. Wang Lin grabbed the golden blood and ran off without a word. The two flew very quickly, one after the other. Wang Lin didn't run in a straight line, but circled the area around the mud pit. He had always felt that Donghua was very strange. When he saw the golden blood, he finally realized something. Although he didn't know what this golden blood was, the memories of the ancient god had something similar. In truth, this golden blood wasn't anything special. It was just similar to the blood of an ancient god, or more accurately, it contained a bit of the blood of an ancient god. Aside from the time he reformed his body, none of Donghua's attacks released any spiritual energy fluctuations at all. His attacks were purely physical. This method no longer belonged to a cultivator. This person was like a puppet that only knew how to use brute force. Donghua was also filled with confusion when it came to Wang Lin's techniques, but under this confusion, there seemed to be a hint of understanding. This person must have cultivated a very strange technique and became like this under the influence of that technique. There were simply too many cultivation methods in the cultivation world for Wang Lin to know them all, but what he guessed was very accurate. The method Donghua cultivated was very similar to the way the ancient gods trained their bodies. This method didn't belong to Zhao, but to the messenger in Heaven's Tower. After cultivating this method, one's divine sense and soul fuse with the body, which was why Wang Lin's Ji realm lost its one-hit kill ability. Wang Lin stared at the golden blood in his hand as his eyes lit up. This person's cultivation method wasn't that of a puppet, but an imitation of the ancient gods. A cold light flashed across Wang Lin's eyes as he slapped his bag of holding and summoned a dark mist. The dark mist turned into 2 puppets. These were 2 of the nascent soul puppets he got from Old Man GMO. Wang Lin flicked his right finger and 2 drops of blood landed on the puppets. Suddenly, the puppets' eyes glowed red as they charged toward Donghua. The puppets attacked with their hands and feet, trying to stop Donghua. Donghua's eyes emitted a ghostly light. He formed a fist and punched one of the puppets. The puppet shook and shattered into pieces. Although his companion was killed, the remaining puppet was unafraid as it continued to attack. Wang Lin took this chance and suddenly stopped. He threw the golden blood into the air. His hand formed a complex seal as he chanted in a complex language. At that moment, even the most educated man would have trouble understanding what Wang Lin was saying, because Wang Lin was speaking in the language of the ancient gods to use a technique. In truth, Wang Lin had a lot of techniques that belonged to the ancient gods in his memories, but without the inheritance of power, it was impossible for him to use any of them. The technique he was using now was one of the few that didn't require the inheritance of power. It only required some blood of the ancient god. After Wang Lin saw the blood, he made the decision to use this technique. As Wang Lin's chant continued, the golden blood began to boil and emit white gas. As more and more white gas escaped, the golden blood condensed into a strange symbol. The moment the symbol appeared, the sky darkened and all of the clouds disappeared as a beam of golden light descended. As the golden light descended, a huge figure composed purely of spiritual energy appeared. This figure was simply large, its head reaching into the sky. As its body solidified, it used a massive amount of spiritual energy from the spirit veins within Zhao. From that day on, 3/5 of the spirit veins became useless. Large amounts of spiritual energy gathered. The remaining 2/5 of the spirit veins gradually lost spiritual energy as well, but the amount of blood used was simply too small, so the giant wasn't able to take physical form and only remained in an illusionary state. Wang Lin's forehead was filled with sweat. Using this technique proved to be a huge burden on his body, as the purple star on his forehead rapidly flickered. At the same time, Wang Lin struggled to point his right hand at Donghua, who saw that something was wrong and escaped. Suddenly, the figure nodded and swung his hand toward Donghua, who was running away. The giant hand hit Donghua. Without any time to react, Donghua mysteriously disappeared. In Wang Lin's divine sense, the light representing Donghua dimmed. Shortly after, a drop of golden blood appeared where Donghua disappeared. Wang Lin reached out and the drop of blood flew toward him. At the same time, that giant figure bowed toward Wang Lin, walked into the sunset and disappeared. The strange symbol formed by the golden blood also disappeared. At that moment, all of the nascent soul cultivators in Zhao noticed this disturbance. Hunnanzi, who was currently flying, suddenly stopped and his expression changed greatly. He quickly spread out his divine sense to check. At the same time, at Heaven's Tower in the center of Zhao, a fat man opened his eyes mid-cultivation as he stared at Wang Lin's direction with a look of disbelief. This is the giant demon clan's heaven-opening technique. As for Wang Lin, he carefully put the drop of golden blood into his bag of holding and immediately sat down cross-legged. He took out bottles of jade and emptied them into his mouth as he quickly activated the ancient god's tactic to digest them. The remaining puppet stood there, confused, next to Wang Lin. But if anything were to come close, it would attack. After one day, Wang Lin opened his eyes and took a deep breath. If it wasn't for the fact that he had all of those pills, then after using the ancient god's technique, it would take him at least half a month to recover. He stood up, looked at the puppet, and saw that it had taken some damage. According to the jade, the puppet would be able to repair itself, so Wang Lin made a seal and pressed it on the puppet's forehead and it turned into smoke, which returned to Wang Lin's bag of holding. Wang Lin looked toward where Donghua died with a complex look. The Tang family was far more powerful than he had thought. If he couldn't successfully use the ancient god's technique according to his original plan, then he would have to use his final resort. The divine retribution lightning was something he really didn't want to use because if he used it now, then there was a high chance that his revenge would be stopped short. This sliver of divine retribution lightning was something Wang Lin had prepared to deal with the messenger inside Heaven's Tower. Not only didn't Wang Lin have to use the divine retribution lightning, he gained a drop of the ancient god's blood. Although this drop of blood wasn't very pure and would disappear after one use, it was still enough to save his life once. Wang Lin waved his hand and the restriction flag returned to him. He looked at the flag and decided that once the matter with the Tang family is over, he will have to find a place that can withstand the divine retribution lightning and place the last restriction on the flag. Then, it will reach the first level of completion and its power will increase greatly. It will no longer be like today, where it had almost no effect on the enemy. This was the first time that Wang Lin felt like he simply had too few magic treasures. The explosion of the bronze mirror made him lose another of what little magic treasures he had. At this point, the only magic treasure he really used was the restriction flag and that sword sheath. As for the flying sword, it was now too weak and needed to be refined again. Beyond these three, there were a few others, but they only would be effective in certain circumstances, such as the beast trap that would only be useful when going against powerful beasts. And there was also that mysterious scroll. Although Wang Lin had not used it yet, he could feel a sensation from the scroll every time he took it out. He felt like there was a powerful life form inside it, and that he should not casually open it. Of course, he still had other magic treasures, but they were too weak. Wang Lin pondered for a little, then took out 3 bags of holding. The sense of danger from the lack of magic treasures made it so that he couldn't help but take a look at these 3 bags. Through this battle, Wang Lin realized that the Ji realm wasn't invincible. There were things in this world that could resist or even counter it. Of course, if he could cultivate the Ji realm to its peak, then it was not an issue, but cultivating the Ji realm was simply too hard. As a result, magic treasures became very important. He didn't want to place all of his hope on his Ji realm, because if his Ji realm ever becomes ineffective, then all will be for nothing. Staring at the 3 bags of holding, Wang Lin took a deep breath. He waved the restriction flag and it surrounded the area in black smoke. Then he pointed at his brow and the 2 devils came out to guard him. After hesitating a bit, he didn't call out the puppet. The puppet had suffered damage in the battle with Donghua and was no longer fit to guard. After doing all that, Wang Lin became serious and picked up a bag of holding. This bag of holding belonged to Ancient Emperor. The word Lan was embroidered on the bag. Wang Lin pondered a little, then the spiritual energy in his body surged. The avatar that was acting as his nascent soul opened its eyes and slivers of spiritual pressure emitted from his body as his right hand slowly moved toward the bag. The moment his hand touched the bag, a powerful force resisted him. His heart sank as he realized that Ancient Emperor wasn't dead. He took a deep breath and pressed his hand on the bag. With each press, a sliver of Ancient Emperor's divine sense was removed, but it is very slow and at the same time, the backlash Wang Lin felt increased. After half an hour, Wang Lin's forehead was filled with sweat. He took a deep breath and took out a few pills to help stabilize his body. He clenched his teeth, activated his Ji realm in his right hand, and pressed it on the bag along with his spiritual energy. This time, the speed increased greatly, but Wang Lin's spiritual energy consumption increased too. After he consumed several bottles of pills, a white light suddenly peered out from the bag of holding and dissipated. Wang Lin relaxed and revealed an excited expression. He quickly scanned the bag with his divine sense, but he soon revealed a weird expression. There were very few things inside the Ancient Emperor's bag of holding. Aside from 2 top-quality spirit stones, there was only an ancient sword sheath. Wang Lin took out the sword sheath. He looked at the sword sheath for a long time, then his brow tightened. This sword sheath looked exactly like the one he had, only the symbol was different. After hesitating for a bit, Wang Lin took out his own sword sheath. Just as he was about to compare the 2 sword sheaths, the symbol on both sheaths began to glow. After a long time, the light slowly disappeared. Wang Lin stared at the sword sheaths. In his heart, he felt that there was some secret about the sword sheaths. He looking at them for a while, then put away the 2 sword sheaths. He then slapped Ancient Emperor's bag of holding and it turned into dust. Wang Lin sighed. After putting so much effort into opening up the bag of holding to only receive this strange thing, he wasn't sure if he should rejoice or feel helpless. He hesitated for a while and looked at the other 2 bags of holding. One of them belonged to the mysterious mummy in the battle temple of Ho Fan. The other contained more than 10 magic treasures. These belonged to those ancient cultivators from the land of the ancient gods. However, they were too powerful. Wang Lin tried all he could and he only managed to take control of the bronze mirror. However, the bronze mirror didn't seem that powerful, which confused him. He picked up this bag of holding and scanned it with his divine sense. The protective barrier on these magic treasures were still active, and they were not something Wang Lin could break through. Wang Lin felt like he was looking at a mountain of treasures, but he couldn't get them no matter what. After letting out a sigh, Wang Lin took out a bag of holding and scanned it with his divine sense. He felt a resistance, so Wang Lin clenched his teeth and used all of his spiritual energy and G realm to wipe the divine sense off the bag. But the moment his spiritual energy touched the bag, his body shook and he felt his own consciousness move far away. He saw a familiar area before him as an evil-looking young man flew at a speed that Wang Lin couldn't believe was possible. The youth suddenly stopped. He raised his head and his eyes turned cold as he said, "You won't be able to run away." Wang Lin's thoughts turned into a mess. He hesitated for a bit and his eyes turned cold. Although he couldn't see through the youth's cultivation level, based on that speed, the evil-looking youth's cultivation level was far above his. Wang Lin especially noticed that the land the youth was flying over was the Sea of Devils. Clearly, the evil-looking youth was that mummy in Hofan. Since Wang Lin took his bag of holding, he was here to get it back. If the person didn't reveal killing intent, then Wang Lin wouldn't mind giving back the bag of holding. However, since that person released a powerful killing intent, that meant that even if Wang Lin gave back the bag of holding, he wouldn't be forgiven. As a result, Wang Lin's heart couldn't help but sink. He hesitated for a while and immediately increased the power of his spiritual energy and G realm to wipe away the divine sense. Time slowly passed. Although the divine sense on the bag of holding slowly disappeared, at this speed, it would take a few hundred years to completely remove it. Wang Lin pondered for a while. His eyes lit up as he came up with an idea, but it was not the time to put that plan to action yet. He knew that he was short on time and immediately stood up. He looked toward the direction of Tang family city as his eyes grew cold. He muttered, "Donghua, I'm coming." In these past few days, almost every one of the Tang family members had arrived at Tang family city. They thought that it was the only safe place. Tang Huayuan looked at all of his Tang family members gathered here and became even more gloomy. He knew that Wang Lin must already be on the way here. The entire Tang family city was in a state of panic. After the Tang family members entered Tang family city, they immediately found the reason why the Tang ancestor hadn't gone out to kill that person. It was not that he didn't want to leave, but the area 10,000 kilometers around the Tang family city was surrounded by a restriction that allowed people to enter, but not leave. As a result, panic spread throughout the city. At the same time, rumors of the mysterious killer spread through the Tang family. Almost every one of the Tang family members were speculating about what kind of grudge this mysterious person had with the Tang family that made him want to exterminate the entire family. Various versions of the story spread between the Tang family members. There were even some versions that were very close to the truth. Although Tang Huayuan tried to stop the rumors, under this state of panic it was not something that people could stop. Gradually, the fear among the Tang family became even worse. This sunny and cloudless day was the 9th day after the killing of the Tang family began. In the entire country of Zhao, any location that had been occupied by Tang family members had no more Tang family members. They had all either been killed or had fled to Tang family city. This was the day that the Tang family will be wiped out. Even hundreds of years from now, when people of Zhao talk about this day, they will shiver. This day was the day that the entire balance of power in Zhao changed. It was also the day that a river of blood flowed in Zhao. On this day, the blood from Tang family city was enough to cover the earth. Also, this day was also the day that everyone in Zhao heard the name Wang Lin, the white-haired cultivator that caused everyone's hearts to turn cold. At the same time, it was also when Wang Lin's name replaced Pun Nanzi's as the #1 cultivator in Zhao, and when the older generation fell. Early morning, tens of thousands of kilometers from Tang family city, Wang Lin was flying on the mosquito beast. Although the bodies behind him had started to rot, under the effect of his technique, the heads remained in perfect condition. This was because Wang Lin had made the promise to build a tower out of the Tang family members' heads. Wang Lin wasn't very fast. He looked toward Tang family city with eyes filled with killing intent and regret. 400 years ago, He was forced by Donghua to self-destruct and nearly died. On this day, 400 years later, he has returned with a monstrous killing intent. He had waited 400 years for this day. Wang Lin jumped down from the mosquito beast 10,000 kilometers from Tang Family City. He coldly looked at Tang Family City. Then, he slowly took the dragon banner and laid each body on the ground. If it was a full body, he would cut the head off. He did this quickly. His actions were clean and merciless. Gradually, a number of heads piled up before him. They all had various expressions, but the one thing in common was the unwillingness and fear on each face. As the heads piled up, the hatred in the air grew. Cold wind started to blow, and even the sky seemed to have darkened a bit. A large tower made out of human heads gradually grew. This was a tower made out of only Tang family members' heads. Anyone who saw this would shiver. Wang Lin put the last head at the top of the tower. He waved his hand and the tower followed behind him as he slowly walked into the restriction that covered the 10,000-kilometer radius of Tang Family City. Donghua and I, Wang Lin, am here. Today no one will be left alive. I won't stop until I die. A voice filled with hate transmitted toward Tang Family City. Before that moment, the Tang family had never before been in silence, but the silence was soon replaced by screams of fear. At almost the exact same time, some of the experts of the Tang family noticed the giant tower made of heads. Gradually, more and more people saw the tower and the fear instantly spread. Tang Huiyan stood on top of the inner wall with a gloomy face. At his side were 4 people. These were the last 4 remaining nascent soul cultivators of the Tang family. The 4 disappeared under the order of Tang Huiyan. When they reappeared, they were already 1,000 feet away from Wang Lin. They quickly took out their magic treasures and used them against Wang Lin. How could Wang Lin's vengeance be stopped by just the 4 of them? Although Wang Lin looked calm, there was a sliver of madness in his heart. Today, he will vent these past 400 years of anger. Today will become a madman, a bloodthirsty madman. Almost without any hesitation, the moment the 4 nascent soul cultivators appeared, Wang Lin's Ji realm moved. Thanks to a series of red lightning bolts, the 4 nascent soul cultivators let out miserable screams before they could even use their magic treasures. The Ji realm formed a cage and trapped the 4 nascent soul cultivators. At the same time, Wang Lin rushed into the cage. His hand moved like a knife and cut off that person's head. He then kicked the head toward the tower. The tower of heads gained another head. Blood spouted out like a fountain and spread all over the ground. Wang Lin suddenly turned. A flying sword had appeared in his hand. The attack of the flying sword made another head fall to the ground. The tower of heads gained another head. This all happened very quickly. In almost an instant, 2 of the 4 had died. The other 2 were trapped inside the cage, unable to resist. Filled with intense hatred, Wang Lin shouted, "Kill!" The Ji realm cage closed in and cut through the remaining 2 nascent soul cultivators. Blood rained down along with chunks of meat. However, under Wang Lin's control, their heads remained intact. The tower of heads gained another 2 heads. After killing the 4 people, Wang Lin stood straight up as he looked toward Tang Huiyuan with a cruel smile. When he saw that smile, Tang Huiyuan's heart became very cold. For nascent soul cultivators were so easily killed. What level of cultivation had this Wang Lin reached? Tang Huiyuan's scalp tingled. His previous assumption was incorrect. The restriction around the city wasn't set by someone else, but by this fiend. Tang Huiyuan, I'm here. Wang Lin's eyes were filled with hatred, but his actions were very calm. He even smiled. As he was speaking, his right hand reached out and turned into a giant hand. He swept the hand across the city and grabbed more than a dozen people while they screamed in fear. Among these people were males and female, cultivators and mortals. The moment Wang Lin's words came out, he squeezed with his hand and all of their bodies exploded, leaving only their heads intact. Blood dripped all over Tang Family City. One drop even landed on Tang Huiyan's face, causing him to tremble. The Tower of Heads gained another 19 heads. Wang Lin. A huge killing intent emitted from Tang Huan. He waved his hand. Suddenly, a golden flag appeared in his grasp. With a swing, the flag released a gas. The gas turned into a giant skull. The skull let out a roar and charged toward Wang Lin. Wang Lin's expression remained calm as he slapped his bag of holding and took out a soul flag. He shook the flag and thousands of screaming souls floated out. Donghua, back then you threatened me with the souls of my family. Today I will repay you in the same way. You can devour as many of them as you like. It will be a great loss, but I won't be heartbroken over it. Wang Lin's voice was dull, but as he was speaking, he waved his right hand and over 100 Tang family members floated into the air. No matter how much they struggled, it was futile. This time Donghua let out a roar as he waved his hand and a strange gust of wind flew out, trying to cut off Wang Lin's technique. Wang Lin sneered. His G realm shot out. The moment it hit, the strange wind dissipated. Wang Lin clenched his right hand and over 100 people exploded. Blood rained from the sky. This time, none of the Tang family members were able to withstand this kind of tension. No one knew who did it first, but everyone scattered on their flying swords in all directions. Wang Lin let out a cruel smile. He pointed his finger into the air, and the thousands of souls of the Tang family charged toward the escaping Tang family members to devour them. Donghua body moved. He clenched his teeth and waved his flag. The golden skull turned into over 1,000 skulls and charged toward those souls. Donghua's heart was bleeding. This was no different than killing his family members himself. Wang Lin's body disappeared and reappeared next to an escaping Tang family member. This was a youth. He was only at the third layer of qi condensation. Only 3 days ago he felt proud to be named Tang, but now he only wished he had nothing to do with the Tang family. However, he never had a chance. The last thing he saw was the white-haired youth that struck fear into his heart. A cold hand reached out to his neck and snapped it. After killing one person, Wang Lin disappeared and reappeared next to another Tang family member. Although this person was a very enchanting girl, to Wang Lin, she was only a dead person. Wang Lin wouldn't show any mercy just because she was a girl, because the Tang family couldn't live in the same world as the Wang family. After crushing her neck, Wang Lin disappeared again. Donghua let out a roar and charged forward. However, he was a bit slower than Wang Lin, so every time he tried to intercept Wang Lin, he only saw the Tang family losing another member. This situation of watching your family members die one by one while being unable to do anything was about to drive Donghua mad. At that moment, he suddenly saw Wang Lin appear next to a young boy. This was the 7th-generation grandson who he personally saw growing up. No! Donghua's eyes were red and he charged forward. Wang Lin coldly looked at Donghua, who was charging over, as he pressed his hand on the boy's forehead. The boy looked at Wang Lin with hatred as Wang Lin sent spiritual energy into his hand, causing the boy to explode into a bloody mess. In your next life, don't be named Tang. After Wang Lin was finished killing, he disappeared again. Donghua stared dumbfoundedly at the bloody mess that was his grandson. Then he let out a painful roar. Wang Lin! Wang Lin's body reappeared 1,000 feet away. He said, "Does it hurt? Back then when you killed my family, my heart also hurt." With that, he randomly slapped the air with his right hand and a Tang family member who was running away in panic turned into mush. Donghua ferociously roared, "I killed your entire family because you killed my grandson. Tang Li. Nonsense. Is only your Tang family allowed kill people? Can't others resist?" Wang Lin let out a cold laugh. He slapped his bag of holding and more than 10 flying swords came out. Once again, dozens more died before Donghua clenched his fist. He waved the flag and all of the golden skulls flew toward Wang Lin. Wang Lin slapped his bag of holding and the restriction flag appeared in his hand. With a wave, black smoke appeared and completely trapped the golden skulls. Wang Lin's eyes lit up as he asked, "Donghua, how did you find my hometown?" Donghua's expression changed as he stared at Wang Lin with deep hatred and said, "You will never know." Wang Lin's face sank. He waved his hand and more than 10 restrictions flew out. More than 100 Tang family members screamed as they died. "Are you going to talk?" Donghua slapped his bag of holding and a giant sword flew out. The sword looked very ancient. He bit the tip of his tongue and spat out fresh blood. His entire body looked weaker afterwards, but the large sword started glowing and flew towards Wang Lin like lightning. Wang Lin's eyes lit up. The moment the giant sword flew out, his G realm moved. A series of red lightning bolts shot out and surrounded the sword in an instant. After a series of cracking sounds, the giant sword slowly broke down. In the end, the Ji realm was used up and the giant sword turned to dust. Wang Lin reached for his bag of holding and took out several nascent souls that he had gotten from Tang family members. He consumed them to quickly recover the used-up energy. Tang Huayuan stared dumbfoundedly at where the sword disappeared. His entire person suddenly became older. Wang Lin formed a seal with his right hand. He pressed it on his forehead and the devil Su Ligua and the third devil quickly flew out. Under Wang Lin's command, they let out excited roars and charged toward the Tang family members. In the blink of an eye, several more people screamed miserably as they died. Every scream caused Tanghuan's body to tremble. "Are you going to talk?" Wang Lin's voice was as cold as ice. Tang Huayuan took a deep breath and closed his eyes. Wang Lin's face had no expression. He didn't even look at Tang Huayuan as his hands formed seals and he sent out a restriction. The restriction that surrounded Tang family city slowly shrank. The people that made it to the edge of the restriction looked at it in despair. When they saw the walls closing in, the Tang family members split into two groups. One group completely gave up while the eyes of the people in the other group grew red, and they charged toward Wang Lin with their magic treasures like moths to a flame. More and more Tang family members charged toward Wang Lin. However, whenever they got within 1,000 feet of Wang Lin, they would be hit by a restriction. Their bodies would explode, creating a rain of blood that fell to the ground. His family's miserable screams entered Tang Huayuan's ears. His body trembled violently and his heart was filled with grief. He wanted to resist, but not even the magic treasure gifted by the higher rank cultivation country was of any use. Tang Huayuan's appearance became even older. He no longer had the majestic complexion he once had. The only thing left was an old man who couldn't do anything as he watched his family die. "I'll speak." Tang Huayuan revealed a deep hatred in his eyes as he looked at Wang Lin and said word for word, "Since my Tang family has met with such disaster, then no one else should think of getting away either." Back then, it was the Piao Miao sect's Gao Qiming who used his heaven calculation skill to help me find the Wang family. It was him. Go find him. He is the first ancestor of the Piao Miao sect. His word is law at the Piao Miao sect. Gao Qiming. Wang Lin stared at Tang Huan. It didn't matter if Tang Huayuan was lying or not. Wang Lin remembered this name. Looking at Tang Huayuan, Wang Lin's gaze suddenly shifted into the distance. His eyes were filled with killing intent. He waved his hand and the restriction that was slowly shrinking suddenly started to close in a lot faster. It went from 10,000 kilometers away to only few kilometers away in an instant. During the process, the people that died weren't even able to let out screams. At the same time, the heads flew one by one due to the effect of some mysterious force and landed on the Tower of Heads. The tower was now so tall it touched the sky. At this point, everyone in the Tang family besides Tang Huayuan had died. On the ground, the blood flowed like a river. The thick stench of blood was in the air. While staring dumbfoundedly at the scene before him, Tang Huayuan suddenly started to laugh. His laugh was filled with sorrow as two streams of blood flowed down his cheeks. Wang Lin calmly looked at Tang Huayuan. After a long time, Tang Huayuan took a deep breath. He raised his head toward Wang Lin. His voice was filled with a sense of indignation as he said, "Good, good. From now on, the grudge between your Wang family and my Tang family is gone. I killed your entire family and you killed my family. It is karma, it really is. Wang Lin, you can kill me now." Wang Lin raised his right hand. His finger radiated a golden light. He moved the spiritual energy in his body to gather at his fingertip. But just at that moment, a loud roar came from the distance. "Stop!" Hearing this voice, Tang Huayuan immediately recognized that it was Pun Nanzi. He became excited and knew that he might have a chance to live today. His gaze toward Wang Lin was now filled with killing intent. His urge to live suddenly kicked in. If he had a sliver of a chance to live, then he wouldn't allow himself to be killed so easily. What grudge between the two families was gone? He only said it because he thought that he was going to die for sure. If he survives today, he will have to find a way to reach the spirit-severing stage no matter the cost so that he could kill Wang Lin as cruelly as possible to get revenge. However, he thought too highly of Pun Nanzi and underestimated Wang Lin. Wang Lin's divine sense was as powerful as a spirit-severing cultivator's divine sense. How could he not notice Pan Nanzi from far away and let Pan Nanzi stop him? The moment Pan Nanzi appeared, Wang Lin flicked the golden light on his finger onto Donghua forehead and killed him. It was indeed as Donghua said. The grudge between the Tang family and Wang family was gone. The Tang family was now completely wiped out from this world. Pan Nanzi's figure suddenly appeared before him. He looked at all of the blood on the ground, at the body of Donghua, whose face had just gained a hint of an urge to live, and finally at the Tower of Heads. He couldn't help but shiver. He barely hesitated to form a seal with his hand. Beams of green and red light shot out from his bag of holding. Wang Lin's expression was calm as he stared at Pan Nanzi and said, "You're late." Pan Nanzi looked at Wang Lin. He was stunned. After carefully looking at Wang Lin, he said, You are a disciple of the Hengyu sect." Wang Lin looked at Pan Nanzi and without a word, his Ji realm shot out. However, just as the red lightning bolt arrived before Pan Nanzi, the green and red lights formed a shield before him. The moment the Ji realm landed, the two lights shone brightly. Ultimately, the two lights managed to block the Ji realm, but their lights dimmed greatly. Pan Nanzi's expression changed greatly. Without wasting a moment, he bit the tip of his tongue and spat blood onto the green and red lights. Pan Nanzi pointed at Wang Lin and shouted, "Go!" Suddenly, the green and red lights darted forward. The space around them tore as they moved. Wang Lin's right hand pointed and all of the restrictions in the restriction flags came out in the shape of dragons to stop the advancement of the green and red lights. But the quality of the green and red lights was extremely high. The restrictions were only able to slow it down a bit, not stop it. Wang Lin's eyes lit up as his Ji realm appeared again. Its target wasn't the green and red lights. It was Pan Nanzi. Pan Nanzi's expression changed greatly. Just as Pan Nanzi was facing a life and death situation, a giant hand appeared out of nowhere and grabbed the Ji realm lightning. The hand lightly squeezed and the red lightning bolt was destroyed, but at the same time, the giant hand shook and let out a soft grunt. Soon, a middle-aged man wearing luxurious clothes over a somewhat fat belly appeared before Pan Nanzi. He looked at Wang Lin and was startled, but soon revealed a look of ecstasy and said, "So it was you." With that, he waved his right hand and the green and red lights quickly returned and flew around him. After the middle-aged man appeared, Pan Nanzi relaxed a bit. He bowed and said, "Greetings, Lord Messenger." Although Pan Nanzi relaxed a lot, his scalp was still tingling. He didn't know what kind of magic treasure that red lightning was, but when it closed in, he felt like he could die instantly. That sense of danger was something that he had only felt from the foreign battleground before. He didn't have any doubt that if the Lord Messenger hadn't appeared, he would have been a corpse right now. He looked at Wang Lin. Aside from a deep sense of fear, there was also a sense of regret. The middle-aged man stared at Wang Lin and slowly said, "I can't believe you didn't die and in just a short 400 years reach such a high cultivation level. Very good. Hand over the heaven-defying bead and I'll spare your life. I'll let you become the #1 person in Zhao. How's that sound?" Wang Lin's expression was calm. This person's appearance was within his calculations. He felt this person's presence when he was 10,000 kilometers away. This person was the messenger from Heaven's Tower, someone from a rank 4 country. Wang Lin guessed that his cultivation level was spirit-severing. If he wasn't spirit-severing, then how could he so easily destroy the Ji realm lightning? This person, knowing that Wang Lin had the heaven-defying bead, was also something that he had considered in his plan for revenge. So when he was in Zhao, he kept the entire country covered in his divine sense. That way, with his spirit-severing level divine sense, no one would be able to identify him. And no one could lock onto him with their divine sense. That was why this messenger never came out to find him during his killing spree. In fact, the middle-aged man had felt a headache in these past few days because no matter how much he scanned Zhao with his divine sense, he couldn't find the person that was killing all of the Tang family members. Unless that person's divine sense was more powerful than Wang Lin's, it was impossible to sense him. It has to be said, although his cultivation level hadn't increased in the past 400 years, only in the early stage of spirit severing, no one in Zhao could surpass him. He never could have guessed that although Wang Lin's cultivation level was only at the early stage of nascent soul, Wang Lin's divine sense was as powerful as a late-stage spirit-severing cultivator's divine sense. Even if that messenger from the giant demon sect came in person, he also wouldn't be able to find Wang Lin. This kind of thing was extremely rare in the cultivation world. After all, Wang Lin was the only soul devourer walking around as a human. Also, there was that strange red lightning. Although the middle-aged man made it look like he easily withstood the attack, in truth, the red lightning entered his body and damaged his soul. The damage wasn't very large, but it still made him afraid. After seeing the messenger appear, Wang Lin's eyes lit up and without a word he took out a drop of blood. A drop of golden-colored blood. A drop of golden-colored blood that was emitting the pressure of the ancient god. Wang Lin's eyes glowed with killing intent as he said, "I have been waiting for you for a long time." His right hand lightly pointed at the golden drop of blood. The blood suddenly started to boil. It turned into a golden symbol and flew into the sky. At that moment, a series of rumbles came from the sky and rays of golden light descended. The golden giant appeared under the rays of the golden light. When he appeared, the entirety of Zhao seemed to tremble. The heavens and earth were completely covered by this golden light. All of the mortals, all of the cultivators, all of the trees, and all of the animals were covered in this golden light. Although Wang Lin's expression was normal, the spiritual energy in his body rapidly depleted. The moment the giant appeared, Wang Lin struggled to point at the middle-aged man. The giant nodded. Its gaze swept toward where Wang Lin pointed and he gently waved his hand. The middle-aged man's expression suddenly changed as he felt a strong sense of danger, causing him to grab Pan Nanzi, who was dumbfoundedly staring at the sky, and placed him in front of himself. Pan Nanzi's body turned to dust along with the middle-aged man's right hand. The middle-aged man let out a painful groan. His face was pale as he quickly retreated. At the same time, he reached into his bag of holding with his left hand and took out a jade. Without any hesitation, he crushed the jade. White light flooded out of the jade, surrounding him, and then he disappeared from the spot. The moment the middle-aged man disappeared, the giant also dissipated. Wang Lin's body trembled. He quickly took out pills from his bag of holding. He spread out his divine sense to look for traces of the middle-aged man. After a long time, Wang Lin frowned. That middle-aged man's presence had disappeared from Zhao. Thinking back to the jade that the middle-aged man crushed, Wang Lin began to analyze what had happened. That jade must have contained some sort of transfer array that would allow him to move long distances. The magic treasures of a rank 4 cultivation country are really beyond my imagination, Wang Lin muttered to himself. He then took a deep breath. In truth, his guess was very accurate. What the middle-aged man used was an escape jade given to all core disciples of his sect. As long as they were within a certain range, they could return to the sect in an instant. The messenger was really terrified of Wang Lin. According to his knowledge, Wang Lin's technique was the giant demon sect's technique. The power of this technique was terrifying. Not even he was sure if he could block it. He had already seen the technique twice in Zhao, so he believed that Wang Lin could use it a third time. For this kind of enemy, even though Wang Lin was only at the nascent soul stage, he still didn't dare to mess with. That's why he didn't have any hesitation to use Pan Nanzi as a shield to give him enough time to escape. Wang Lin sat cross-legged on the ground to recover his spiritual energy. After a long time, he stood up, waved his right hand, and picked up the tower made of Tang family members' heads. At a village at the foot of the Hongyu mountain, all of the villagers fell to the ground asleep after a strange wind blew by. Shortly after, a tower of heads appeared before the Wang family's house. Under the tower, Wang Lin knelt to the ground and kowtowed as tears flowed down his cheeks. He just stared at his home like this until night came. Then Wang Lin sighed, hit the tower with his hand, and the tower of heads turned to dust. I have avenged our family. Mom, Dad, your son is going to walk his own path now. Wang Lin silently stood up and left the village. After he left, all of the villagers woke up. After they noticed that it was already dark, they all knelt to the ground, praying to the immortals to protect them. Wang Lin flew in the air. The mosquito beast had already been put away. He arrived at a valley. This is where he died before. Looking at the valley, Wang Lin took a deep breath then stared at the sky. He thought of many things as the scene from 400 years ago replayed over and over in his mind and wouldn't go away. Now that the Tang family was destroyed, he no longer had any weight on his shoulders. His mentality suddenly underwent a change. Wang Lin understood that he was no longer a mortal, and had already walked onto the path of a cultivator. This road was tough and full of danger, but he had to be determined to keep walking down this road. For hundreds of years' experience showed him that power was the only means to protect himself. The dream he had as a child to become an immortal intensified infinitely at that moment. And there was also Situ Nan. Only after his cultivation level has reached the soul transformation stage can Situ Nan can leave the heaven-defying bead. And there was also the vast universe from the ancient gods' memories, along with the countless powerful life forms that shocked Wang Lin greatly. Wang Lin stood up as he looked into the distance. His eyes were filled with a fantastic light. At that moment, Wang Lin's mentality changed. He was once a kid that wanted to get revenge for his parents' murder. Now that his revenge was complete, he would now pursue the peak of cultivation and become a true immortal. Wang Lin took a deep breath. His body moved and he jumped off the cliff. He arrived at the spot where he died before and suddenly disappeared from there. Piao Miao sect. Gao Qiming sat inside his own chamber with a bronze mirror before him. His expression was extremely ugly. 200 years ago, he foresaw that he was going to suffer a great disaster. However, that disaster was very uncertain, so he couldn't get exact details with only his cultivation level. As time passed, the impending sense of doom became even stronger. When the Tang family members started to die, he was suddenly able to calculate his remaining lifespan. He only had 10 days left. If he didn't die in 10 days, then the disaster would affect the entire Piao Miao sect. Today was the 10th day. Gao Qiming had always believed in the heaven's way because that was his cultivation path. He knew that he must die today, otherwise the Piao Miao sect would be in danger. That was why he had already started planning for his death a few days ago. At this moment he had no more regrets. He took a deep breath, looked at his surroundings with regret, and hit his forehead with his palm. Blood leaked out of the corner of his mouth. His vision became blurry, and the light in his eyes faded. At that moment he suddenly saw a scene from 400 years ago. It was when Tang Huayuan asked him to find the location of the family of a foundation establishment disciple. He gained a hint of understanding, then he closed his eyes and died. Wang Lin looked at Zhao from next to the ancient transfer array. He then opened up the array and disappeared from Zhao. 10 days later, an evil-looking youth appeared next to the transfer array. He looked at the transfer array and walked into it without any hesitation. In a valley millions of miles away from Zhao, Wang Lin's figure slowly appeared. The moment he appeared, he spread out his divine sense, then carefully checked out his map. Then he quickly moved, seeking the next transfer array. Wang Lin knew that the owner of the bag of holding was closing in from behind. If he didn't lose him, then he couldn't cultivate in peace. Therefore, his goal was the ancient transfer arrays. He had quite a bit of top-quality spirit stones, so he could use them several times. Half a month later, Wang Lin arrived at an ancient transfer array. After he checked it out, he stood in the middle of it, took out a top-quality spirit stone, and placed it on the array. But at that moment, a dark cloud suddenly appeared. The cloud gathered and formed the figure of the evil-looking youth. The youth stared at Wang Lin. Wang Lin's heart sank. The youth's speed was several times faster than what he originally thought. Wang Lin also wasn't able to determine this person's cultivation level with his divine sense. He felt an extreme sense of danger. If one relied solely on the top-quality spirit stone to start the array, then it would take 10 breaths of time to transfer them. However, in this crisis, Wang Lin desperately poured his spiritual energy into the transfer array to speed up the activation. In the end, in the same moment the evil-looking youth arrived. Rings of light floated up from the transfer array and Wang Lin's body disappeared. The evil-looking youth let out a roar. His hand formed a seal. The moment Wang Lin disappeared, he charged into the rings of light. After using an unknown technique, he caused the transfer array to activate again and disappeared among the rings of light. Wang Lin felt a sense of extreme danger during the transfer process. He could clearly feel that a divine sense that was powerful beyond his imagination swept toward him like a tornado. Wang Lin felt terrified in his heart. Just as the divine sense swept toward him, His G realm formed a never-seen-before thick red lightning bolt that charged toward the youth. The impact of the G realm made the divine sense pause for a bit. At that moment, a light appeared in the other end and Wang Lin quickly charged toward it. After he came out, he violently coughed out several mouthfuls of blood. The nascent soul formed by his avatar shrunk and seemed to be ready to collapse at any moment. But Wang Lin didn't pause as he quickly moved. He disappeared and reappeared 100 meters away. However, he didn't continue to run, but took out a red thread from his bag of holding. Wang Lin knew that no matter how hard he tries to escape, he won't be able to escape from that person's speed. Also, his nascent soul had taken too much damage. If he kept running, that person wouldn't even have to act. He would die from his nascent soul collapsing. This was the most powerful weapon he currently possessed. The moment he took out the divine retribution lightning, he also took out a bottle of pills and dumped them into his mouth. The evil-looking youth appeared 10 feet away from Wang Lin. As he stared at the thread in Wang Lin's hand, his expression became unsettled. The evil-looking young man looked at Wang Lin and slowly said, "Divine retribution. I can't believe that a waste of a planet like this could have such a magical treasure." Wang Lin stared at the person. Only after that person looked at the divine retribution and revealed a look of fear did he relax a bit. If the youth was indifferent toward the divine retribution, then the only thing he could do hide was inside the heaven-defying bead's space, and that was not a good idea. The evil-looking young man was also feeling very frustrated. He never thought that he would meet the power of divine retribution here. If he was at full power, it would not a big deal. He would be confident that he could destroy this sliver of divine retribution. But right now he had only recovered 30% of his strength. He was merely an early-stage soul transformation level cultivator. As a result, although he could defend against the divine retribution, he would certainly be injured. If his cultivation falls below soul transformation, he won't be able to leave and will have to find another place to heal up again. All of this worrying was because the minimum cultivation level required to use the star disc was soul transformation. However, these are not the main reasons. The main reason was that inside the transfer array, he felt a power that made his skin crawl. This was a power he was very familiar with. The evil-looking young man let out a snort. He no longer looked at the divine retribution and looked toward Wang Lin. "Junior, hand over the bag of holding and I'll let this matter go," he said. "Is this what Senior wants?" Wang Lin's gaze was serious as he stared at the person and took out a bag of holding. The evil-looking young man's gaze quickly shifted to the bag and he said, "That is correct. Toss it over here." Wang Lin hesitated a bit. The youth was simply too fast. Even if he were to ask him to go far away or to wait until he himself was far away, it would all be pointless. If this person really wanted to kill him, it would be very easy. After pondering for a bit, Wang Lin decisively threw out the bag of holding. The evil-looking young man caught the bag of holding. After scanning it with his divine sense, his expression softened. He looked at Wang Lin. His face showed no expression, neither anger nor happiness. Wang Lin stared at the young man. He placed the divine retribution lightning before him and said, "Senior Junior has already returned the bag of holding, so I'll take my leave." With that, he carefully backed up. The evil-looking young man looked at Wang Lin. His eyes suddenly started glowing. Two beams of colorful light suddenly shot out from his eyes toward Wang Lin at an unimaginable speed. Wang Lin had remained cautious this whole time, so when he saw that the youth acted, his G realm shot out without any hesitation and collided with the colorful light. Shortly after, Wang Lin coughed out a mouthful of blood as the red lightning formed by the G realm collapsed under the colorful light. While Wang Lin retreated, he took out the restriction flag. The last restriction appeared in his hand and was about to land on the restriction flag. The evil-looking young man's expression changed greatly and he shouted, "Stop! Little friend, don't be rash." With that, he backed up and stared at the restriction flag with fear. He bitterly smiled. A sliver of divine retribution would only lower his cultivation level, not kill him. At most, it would force him to go into closed-door cultivation for a few thousand years. But after he saw the restriction flag, he understood why this junior would have a sliver of divine retribution. Although he didn't know what the restriction flag was, he could immediately tell that it was a magic treasure that could bring out divine retribution. He had a few of those weapons himself, so he knew of its power. If he let his kid continue, then he would not come out of it with something as simple as needing to take more time to recover. He might forever lose the chance to recover his cultivation. Wang Lin still had some blood at the corner of his mouth as he looked at the evil-looking young man. Right now, with just one thought, the last restriction would land on the restriction flag. If he gave up the flag and then used the sliver of divine retribution as a guide, he was confident that he could direct part of the divine retribution's power onto the evil-looking young man. Wang Lin stared at the young man and said, "I have already returned the bag of holding and didn't touch it at all. Why did Senior go back on his word?" The evil-looking young man pondered for a while, then asked, "Was the red lightning you just used the G realm?" His tone was uncertain. Wang Lin's expression remained normal, but his heart was in turmoil as he silently stared at the young man. The evil-looking youth stared at Wang Lin and said, "I should be correct. What you used just now was the G realm." Right now, the youth's feelings were very complicated. Wang Lin had brought him one surprise after another. At this almost waste of a planet, not only did this kid have a sliver of divine retribution and a magic treasure to call the divine retribution, but he also had the G realm. It was this G realm that caused his killing intent to completely disappear. The evil-looking young man took a deep breath and revealed a strange expression. Wang Lin's expression remained calm. After a moment of silence, he said, "If Senior doesn't have anything else, then Junior will take his leave." With that, he carefully backed up. If the youth were to move at all, he would activate the divine retribution without any hesitation. The evil-looking young man hesitated for a while and asked, "Do you not want your G realm to break through the bottleneck?" Wang Lin's body stopped moving and he stared at the youth. The evil-looking young man hesitated once more. He sighed and said, "Forget it. Kid, you better listen. The G realm is a very extreme power. Breaking through the bottleneck is very difficult, but it's not impossible." Wang Lin's expression remained unimpressed as he silently looked at the person. The evil-looking young man revealed a look of appreciation, and his eyes suddenly lit up as colorful light slowly appeared. The light turned into a ball of light and floated in his hand. Wang Lin's caution reached its extreme as he stared at the colorful light. The evil-looking young man looked at the colorful light with a complex expression. After a long time, he sighed and said, "Check the light with your divine sense." Wang Lin pondered for a little before scanning the light with his divine sense. His expression immediately became strange. He paused, then asked, "This is?" Inside the colorful light, he detected a sliver of G realm. This discovery shook his heart. The evil-looking young man took a deep breath and slowly said, "You found it? This colorful light on my home planet is called the 5-color G realm. This was originally not mine. It was gifted to me by a friend as he was dying." Wang Lin took a deep breath. His eyes trembled as he looked at the colorful light. The evil-looking young man waved his hand and the colorful light disappeared. He looked at Wang Lin and said, "The G realm is divided into many different kinds. As for how many there are, no one really knows. Cultivators with G realm are rare in the cultivation union, so I am unable to see what property your G realm contains. But I know that no matter what type of G realm it is, they all have a bottleneck, and those bottlenecks are extremely difficult to break through. I know of a method that allows the G realm to break through the bottleneck: the cultivation planet crystal. This crystal is given to every rank 6 cultivation country when it gets approved by the cultivation union. The old monsters of the cultivation union use their heaven-defying powers to form the crystal. It is a rank 6 cultivation country's national treasure. If a G realm cultivator obtains it and refines it, there is a chance of breaking through that G realm bottleneck. Wang Lin's expression was kind of ugly. A rank 6 cultivation country's national treasure was not something he could obtain. The evil-looking young man looked at Wang Lin. He then slapped his bag of holding and took out a black disc. He casually hit the disc with his right hand, and the disc suddenly grew larger while releasing a gentle light. If you manage to obtain the cultivation planet crystal and obtain the qualification to leave this waste of a planet, you can come and find me at the 5 Elements planet. My name is Na Duo. With that, he rose up in the air and disappeared into the flying disc. Shortly after, the disc began to spin rapidly, causing a hole to appear in the sky. Through the hole, Wang Lin could see the endless void filled with bright stars. The disc moved and entered the hole. The hole rapidly shrunk and disappeared without a trace. Wang Lin considered himself very lucky that this person didn't pursue the matter about the bag of holding. Whether it was the restriction flag or the sliver of divine retribution, both were his ultimate weapons, especially the sliver of divine retribution. These were things that he didn't want to use if he didn't have to. He looked at where the hole disappeared and a powerful urge appeared in his heart. When he was young, he dreamed of flying in the sky, but now he wished to fly among the stars. He took a deep breath and turned around to leave. The cultivation country crystal of a rank 6 cultivation country was not something he could obtain at the moment. Whether what the evil-looking young man said was true or not, it was still a clue. If he ever reaches a cultivation level high enough to obtain it, then he wouldn't mind trying it out. The only thing he needed to worry about now was how to reach the spirit-severing stage. Producing a spirit-severing cultivator is the requirement for a rank 3 cultivation country to reach rank 4. It is very difficult. It has to be said that on the entire planet, there are countless rank 3 cultivation countries, but less than 20 rank 4 cultivation countries. This data clearly displays the difficulty of reaching the spirit-severing stage. If he wants to reach the spirit-severing stage, the spiritual energy and environment of a rank 3 cultivation country isn't enough. Wang Lin's goal is to find a rank 4 cultivation country and reach the spirit-severing stage there. He took out the map. After looking at it for a while, he set his sights on the 5-sect union. This rank 4 cultivation country was the closest one to his current location. Half a month later, the border of the 5-sect union appeared before Wang Lin. At the border, there was a light screen blocking the path. This was the difference between a rank 3 and rank 4 cultivation country. This light blocked outsiders from entering. Wang Lin arrived before the light screen. After looking at it for a bit, he sent out a restriction. The restriction landed on the light screen and an opening appeared. Without a word, Wang Lin went inside. After Wang Lin entered the rank 4 country, he no longer flew, but walked like a mortal. He looked around at this foreign place and sighed. No cultivation method can help one break through from the nascent soul stage to the spirit-severing stage. Even pills are useless unless one can find rank 6 or higher pills. In order to reach the spirit-severing stage, one must study the heavens and gain their own Tao. That is the only way. Wang Lin didn't join any sect once he entered the rank 4 country because he knew about this. After all, joining a sect won't help him much with reaching the spirit-severing stage anyway. If he wanted to join a sect and become its core member, it would take too much time. Time he didn't want to waste. From his 400 years of experience in cultivating and his experience with other spirit-severing cultivators, he understood that an understanding of the heavens was very important for reaching the spirit-severing stage. Wang Lin had walked the path of blood for a long time, and all that killing had nothing to do with understanding the heavens. He had a feeling that if he were to continue down this path, he would never be able to reach the spirit-severing stage. In reality, Wang Lin's real cultivation level wasn't nascent soul. His main body's G realm prevented his main body from reaching the nascent soul stage, so it was only his avatar that reached the nascent soul stage. Walking on the road, Wang Lin's body gradually changed as his main body went inside and fell into a deep sleep while his avatar came out. Wang Lin had come to an understanding about his G realm, so he won't insist on trying to break through the bottleneck of his G realm. He will also no longer rely on the G realm so much. From now on, it will just be another magic treasure to him. His current magic treasures were too weak to damage spirit-severing cultivators. In order for this magic treasure to rise up in strength, he will need some very rare heavenly treasures, like a rank 6 cultivation country's cultivation planet crystal. After giving up on the G realm, Wang Lin decided to use his avatar to walk the path of a cultivator. If one day his avatar reaches the soul transformation stage, he might have a chance of obtaining the crystal. Then, once he refines it, he might have a chance to break through with his G realm. Wang Lin took a deep breath and took the G realm out of his consciousness. He understood that the most important thing for him to do was to gain an understanding of the heavens, but he had spent most of his life on the path of killing, and this path was incomplete. If he wanted to understand the heavens, then he must start from the beginning and become immortal. If one wants to turn into an immortal, one must turn into a mortal first. Before he knew it, Wang Lin's mentality changed and he gained a hint of understanding. However, that hint went by like lightning and Wang Lin wasn't able to capture it. He pondered for a while then smiled. His cultivation disappeared like melting snow. After a while, he looked no different than a mortal. Wang Lin's eyes revealed a strange light as he grabbed a willow leaf. He put it in his mouth to savor the green taste as he walked along the road. This rank 4 cultivation country was very large, several times larger than Zhao. There were a lot of cultivators and the amount of mortals had also reached an incredible number. While Wang Lin was walking, he saw people passing by. All of them were carrying some sort of baggage unlike him, so he attracted a lot of attention. Wang Lin pondered for a little. He went to the side of the road and gathered some thin twigs and made a basket for himself. He then gathered various leaves and herbs to fill the basket. Wang Lin had only walked on the road for a few hours and had already seen many martial artists from the mortal world pass by on horses. None of them paid any mind to Wang Lin. Every time horses passed by, they would kick up a cloud of dust. However, Wang Lin didn't mind. He dusted the dirt off his clothes and continued walking. But this time he only walked a bit before a voice behind him shouted, "Make way!" At the same time, a powerful wind came from behind him. Wang Lin quickly dodged to the side and saw a black horse almost touching his body as it passed by. Shortly after, several more horses passed by. One of them was about to bump into Wang Lin when the rider suddenly pulled hard on the reins. The horse let out a loud noise. Its front legs rose up and it moved to the side. Only after taking a few more steps forward did the horse stop. The man riding the horse stared at Wang Lin. He picked up his whip and swung it toward Wang Lin's head while shouting, "Where did this blind person come from? Do you not have eyes?" Wang Lin frowned. However, just as the whip was coming, a middle-aged man came from the side, grabbed the whip and shouted, "Zhang-san, what are you doing?" The man snorted. He put away the whip, shot Wang Lin a vicious stare and left. The middle-aged man didn't look the man as he turned toward Wang Lin and said, "Sorry little brother for scaring you. I still have an important matter to attend to, so please forgive me." Wang Lin shook his head and said, "No problem." With that, he dusted the dirt off his clothes. The middle-aged man revealed a surprised expression. From his point of view, Wang Lin was only a normal person with no signs of being a martial artist, but Wang Lin's courage was far above an ordinary person's. The middle-aged man carefully looked at Wang Lin. He smiled and said, "I'm Lu Xing. This road only heads toward the capital. I wonder what little brother is heading toward the capital for." With that, he saw the basket on Wang Lin's back and asked with a strange expression, "Is little brother a traveling doctor?" Wang Lin didn't make any excuse and nodded. The middle-aged man smiled. He clasped his hands and jumped on his horse. Suddenly, the horse let out a cry, but instead of going forward, he went back. Wang Lin turned around and saw that 100 meters behind him, a carriage slowly moved forward. Half an hour later, the carriage slowly appeared behind Wang Lin. There were more than 100 people on horses guarding the carriage. All of their eyes were shining, their heads straight. It was clear that they were all expert martial artists. Lu Xing was on the side of the carriage. He was close to the carriage talking to someone inside. This road was not wide, so after seeing the carriage, Wang Lin stood on the side of the road. As the carriage passed by him, 4 people on horses appeared in front of him to block him from the carriage. Lu Xing turned to look at Wang Lin and his eyes lit up. He moved his horse next to Wang Lin, then clasped his hands and said, "Little brother, do you have any medication for the evil wind condition?" Wang Lin knew that the other mistook him for a doctor. With his temper, he normally wouldn't bother with this, but he suddenly had some insight. In order to reach the spirit-severing stage, he must be able to understand the heavens. Maybe this was a chance to enter the mortal world. Thinking about it, Wang Lin asked, "Is there someone sick?" The middle-aged man hesitated for a bit and said, "A servant girl is sick and we are still far from the city. The doctors around here tried giving her some medication, but none of them worked." Wang Lin glanced at the carriage and said, "Let me see the patient." Lu Xing wryly smiled and said, "Little brother, do you have medication that can help? If you don't have any, then there is no need to see the patient." Just at that moment, an old voice came from the carriage. It said, "Lu Xing, this person has traveled a lot, so he might have a cure." Lu Xing quickly replied. He jumped down from the horse and said, "I'm going to have to trouble you, little brother. Wang Lin followed Lu Xing to the carriage and was about to go up when the old man inside coughed. Lu Xing quickly stopped Wang Lin and said, "Little brother, just look from here. There is no need to go inside." Wang Lin frowned. Thanks to his divine sense, he already knew that there were 3 people inside the carriage. Aside from the old man, there were 2 beautiful ladies. It was very clear that they were a master and her servant. The person who was sick was not the servant, but the master. With his divine sense, Wang Lin could clearly see that the lady wasn't sick due to evil wind entering her body, but from some green gas inside her body. She had clearly been poisoned. Wang Lin said, "Stick our hand out." The lady inside the carriage hesitated for a bit before extending her hand. Wang Lin held her hand for a bit before letting go and reaching into his basket. He took out a leaf and ran his spiritual energy through it once. He handed the leaf to Lu Xing and said, "Have her eat it raw and she will be cured by tomorrow." Lu Xing looked at the leaf in his hand with a strange expression. No matter how he looked at it, it was only the leaf of a willow tree. Lu Xing bitterly smiled as he thought that he was wrong about this young man. Clearly, this young man was not a doctor but a madman. Otherwise, who would use willow leaves as medication? If this leaf really was medication, then anyone can grab a bunch from the side of the road. He was about to throw away the leaf when the curtain on the carriage suddenly lifted. An old man filled with wrinkles came out and grabbed the leaf. After looking at it for a long time, his expression changed as he said, "A 100-year-old willow leaf." He took a deep breath. His eyes were filled with disbelief as he looked at Wang Lin and respectfully asked, "Is there any trick to using this leaf?" Wang Lin faintly smiled and said, "Eating it raw is fine." The old man quickly nodded. He made an expression toward Lu Xing and returned to the carriage. Lu Xing looked at Wang Lin with a strange expression. He couldn't help but wryly smile and said, "Little brother, since you're going to the capital too, how about you travel with us?" Wang Lin smiled and said, "I need a horse." After Lu Xing heard this, he immediately said, "Sunflower, hand over your horse." A 20-or-so-year-old youth bitterly smiled. He got off the horse and brought it over. After muttering a few words, he turned around and left. Wang Lin examined the horse. It looked very heroic and its eyes were filled with intelligence. When Wang Lin rubbed the horse, its eyes narrowed as it let out a very comfortable expression. This startled Lu Xing. This was the first time he had seen a horse show an expression like this. Wang Lin's left hand pressed against the horse and he easily jumped onto its back. Lu Xing quickly followed behind as he chatted with Wang Lin and kept looking back at the carriage. Wang Lin looked around at all of the mortals surrounding him as he rode. A feeling he hadn't felt in a long time appeared in his heart. At that moment, the spiritual energy in his body started to move on its own, and all of the surrounding spiritual energy seemed to be attracted to him. If there were any powerful cultivators around, they would be shocked because there was a thick layer of red mist aura surrounding Wang Lin. This aura was very powerful. However, it was not leaking outward, but condensed around Wang Lin. Not to mention mortals, even most cultivators wouldn't be able to see this red mist aura. This was the murderous aura that Wang Lin had gained from his 400 years of killing. After being part of him for such a long time, it gradually changed into a hostility aura. Eventually, as he killed even more and underwent a change, it became an evil aura that would cause any cultivator's skin to crawl. When this evil aura can be used freely, it can be used like a powerful technique. Also, if a bit of it is used when refining a magic treasure, it would make the treasure much more powerful. The spring wind blew past Wang Lin and he unconsciously took a deep breath. His eyes radiated an unnoticeable light. He could clearly feel that his spiritual energy was undergoing a change. Although this change was very small, it contained a very mysterious power. The evil aura around Wang Lin loosened a bit. A sliver of it entered his body and fused with his spiritual energy. Gradually, as the carriage slowly moved forward, more and more spiritual energy gathered around Wang Lin. Under the dense spiritual energy, all of the horses suddenly became very lively. Even those mortal martial artists' eyes lit up. They didn't know why, but there was something that was causing their bodies to feel warm and comfortable. After a long time, the spiritual energy in Wang Lin's body settled down, and the spiritual energy around the area dissipated. The martial artists' heads suddenly became clear as they talked among themselves about what they had just experienced. As the group kept moving forward, night eventually fell. A circle of carriages was formed on the side of the road. Some of the servant girls came down from the carriages and started to prepare dinner. Some of them threw a few looks at Wang Lin and talked among themselves. It was not hard to understand why all of the female servants were looking at Wang Lin. Right now he had an unspeakable charm. Although his looks were normal, he had a very special aura about him. Wang Lin sat leaning against a big tree as he looked at the slowly darkening sky. He was experiencing a kind of peace of mind that he had never experienced in the past 400 years. This was from the ancient gods' inheritance of memory. Back when 2C wasn't able to travel among the stars, he often looked at the sky like this. This peace of mind caused the spiritual energy in Wang Lin's body to resurface again. But the current Wang Lin didn't pay attention to the spiritual energy and, for the first time, he noticed the red mist aura around him. The red substance slowly dissipated with his mind at peace. He knew that if he kept this up, then the red substance will disappear after several years. Wang Lin had noticed this red substance before, but this was the first time he'd seen it. He knew this was caused by his 400 years of killing. Although he knew that allowing this red substance to dissipate would help him enter the spirit-severing stage, he still felt that it was a bit of a waste. Wang Lin pondered for a while. After thinking about it, he started to make the red substance around him boil and slowly condense. However, after shrinking it to 1/10th of its original size, Wang Lin could no longer condense it any farther, no matter how hard they tried. Wang Lin took a deep breath. Just as he was about to try again, he raised his head and looked toward the female servants. He saw a servant girl wearing red walking toward him with smoked meat and wine. A wave of fragrance flowed toward Wang Lin as the girl came closer. She put down the meat and wine as she curiously looked at Wang Lin for a while and said, "Thank you." This girl was the servant girl that was sitting with the young lady in the carriage earlier. He picked up the wine, scanned it with his divine sense, then took a sip. A hot and spicy taste suddenly entered his body. In these 400 years, this was one of only a few times that Wang Lin had drank any wine. Back before he entered the path of cultivation, his father would only take out wine when his fourth uncle visited. Whenever that happened, Wang Lin would secretly drink a bit, then giggle toward his father and fourth uncle with a red face. With a hint of sadness, Wang Lin took another big gulp. The girl opened her mouth wanting to say something, but then someone called her. The girl responded. Her pretty eyes looked at Wang Lin before she turned around and left. Because Wang Lin was a cultivator, he didn't need to eat, so mortals' food held no attraction to him. That smoked meat was left where it was, but this wine reminded him of something, so he continued to drink until it was all gone. In the middle of the night, the martial artists set up fire pits. Bursts of laughter came from the men grouped around them. As Wang Lin listened to their laughter, he couldn't help but faintly smile. Some of the martial artists became very brave after drinking a bit, and went to flirt with the servant girls for some private time. Seeing these mortals, Wang Lin unconsciously thought of Li Muan. At that moment, Lu Xing arrived next to Wang Lin with 2 jugs of wine. After passing over a jug to Wang Lin, he sat down next to him and said, "Little brother, your medication was indeed effective. My lady is already better. Here, a toast to you." With that, he tilted the jug and filled his cup, but then he saw that Wang Lin didn't even use a cup and drank a large gulp directly from the jag. He let out a laugh. After drinking the wine in the cup, he copied Wang Lin and drank a large gulp from the jag. "Didn't you say that it was the servant girl who was sick? How come it is the young lady now?" Wang Lin faintly smiled as he looked at Lu Xing. Lu Xing's old face turned red. He felt very embarrassed as he slapped his leg and said, "Little brother, this is my fault. How about this, once we arrive at the capital city, if you have any problems, you can come to the Southern Heaven store to find me. As long as I am capable, I won't hesitate to help." Wang Lin let out a smile. He no longer talked. He only slowly savored the taste of the wine. Lu Xing looked at the empty jug on the ground, then looked at the almost empty jug in Wang Lin's hand. He smiled and said, "Little brother has very good tolerance for wine. It's lonely here. How about we go over to the fire and compete with my fellow brothers?" Wang Lin reflexively wanted to reject, but after pondering for a bit, he nodded. Wang Lin followed Lu Xing to the fire. There were a lot of martial artists there. They were all laughing as they talked about fun events they had encountered. Lu Xing went up and kicked the person who was talking and jokingly scolded, "Wang Laowu, I have heard you talk about Qing Fan Lao's little peach many times. I guess she served you well. When we get back, I'm going to check if you're just bragging." The person named Wang moved over to make 2 spots for Lu Xing and Wang Lin as he said, "Since you take care of business so fast, I'll cover the bill. I'll still have time to go after you." The moment that was said, everyone around started laughing and Lu Xing jokingly scolded a bit before sitting down with Wang Lin. Wang Lin casually looked at the mortals around him. He was feeling a lot of regret. Although these people's lives were short and just a breath from him was enough to kill them many times over, their happiness was something he didn't have. Tonight, Wang Lin drank a lot of wine. Although he didn't talk much, the others around him got familiar with him and laughed and drank with him. Later, some brave and bold servant girls joined them as well, including the servant girl who gave him food. However, she only sat next to Wang Lin. Her gleaming gaze often landed on him, but no one knew what she was thinking. It wasn't until midnight that everyone fell asleep from being drunk, and the servant girls all returned to sleep in the carriages. Aside from few that were standing guard in the distance, everyone was asleep. The camp was completely silent, aside from a few popping sounds from the fire. This sound not only didn't disturb anyone's sleep, but helped them sleep even better. Wang Lin stood up and walked to a large tree before sitting down. Sitting while leaning against a tree, he felt waves of calmness. Earlier, only for a while, he forgot that he was a cultivator and thought that he was a mortal like everyone else. He closed his eyes and checked his body. To his surprise, his cultivation level had broken through the early stage of nascent soul into the mid-stage. Although he was already at the peak of the early stage and could break through at any time, he didn't think it would be this fast. However, the red substance around his body had dissipated a little. He had a feeling that if he just lets this red substance dissipate, he will regret it in the future. His divine sense entered the red substance once more to condense it.